Hope you're ready to have some fun with a diesel engine today.
Oh no.
That's not good. The important thing is to remain calm and to breathe.
Whoa.
Okay. So why is this the Achilles heel of our engine?
These are the tails of Boab.
We have a Volvo Penta MD2030, and what we realized was this overflow tank here was full of water, which usually isn't a big problem. If the engine overheats, the antifreeze should overflow into here, but as the engine cools, it should suck it back down. So how we know that this is an issue is when we pop off the cap here, we realize that the cooling system is completely full to the top, but we have water in here as well. So we know now that that's salt water that has gotten into the freshwater system. That's no bueno, and that is something we dealt with since the first day we bought this boat. So right now we are about to take apart the entire cooling system. We have to drain out the fresh water, which now has salt in it, and we have to get to the thermostat, make sure the thermostat is looking okay, because that'll get gunked up when you have the mixture. And we are going to be going all the way to the Achilles heel of our engine.
Okay, he made that look easy. Let's see what he's up to next.
The next thing we want to take apart is the water pump. I want to just take a look at the thermostat, mainly to see if it got gunked up. And we're going to start by just taking off this boot here. And this boot is connected to this hose, and then we're going to get this hose off as well, and that's going to allow this to come off. And then we'll start taking off the bolts and nuts. Stuck on the heat exchanger. Okay. Having a little bit of trouble with the boot, so I'm gonna try to take the hose off that's below it, and hopefully that gives me a little more access and room to get this baby off. JK, I just went Rambo on it. That lower hose was actually gonna be harder to get off, and then we saw this. There seems to have been, that looks like maybe a part of a gasket. But it was trying to, so that was here in the heat exchanger, blocking some of these holes, so that's not good.
Oh no.
That's not good. That's really not good. Just broke the head of a bolt off trying to get it off. There's about 8 bolts that you have to get off, and then the water pump comes off. We're about to spray a bunch of penetrating oil all over these bolts and let it sit for a while. And then hopefully the other bolts are in a little bit better shape than that one, and we'll deal with that when we get to it. I'm not even sure if we're gonna be able to get the water pump off with that stuck in there like that. But the important thing is to remain calm and to breathe. While we're waiting for those nuts and bolts to hopefully loosen up, Michael,
Yo.
what's going on in the kitchen here?
I'm working on some minestrone. Kind of minestrone. It was in a can, but I added a lot of extra stuff, hot sauce and
What's the
chicken.
big news? What's the big news?
Oh, the biggest news of all is the fact that we have a massive propane tank and we're able to use it with our teeny little cooking stove. Before, all we had was those like mini camping canisters, but we managed to borrow a hose from a friend who wasn't using it.
What's in there?
I chefed up some pressure cooker chicken.
We're eating great. We have a fridge, freezer situation and massive propane. What a game changer that is. We cannot wait to get to the table project. We'd love to have a table, but for now, this is what we do. We got our 2 triangle pads. That'll play. We just had a delicious lunch. We let it sit for a while. I don't know what else to do but just to give it a run, so I'm gonna be careful. But come on, baby. Oh, come on, nice and smooth here. Oh my gosh.
Oh wow.
You gotta be kidding me. Okay, so we've just lost our third bolt head. We're gonna pump the brakes on this. Removing the water pump, checking out the thermostat was only like a precautionary measure. It is something that we are going to have to do before we start this thing back up. But the whole point of the day was actually to get to the exhaust elbow. That is our Achilles heel of this poor Volvo Penta. And we need to get that thing off. That is the root of all of these problems. That is what's causing salt water to just shower the engine. So I'm a little nervous, but we've been soaking. It's 4 8mm Allen wrench size bolts in the back that are holding the elbow together, along with some hose clamps and hoses. It's really hard to get to. I remember, you know, you bump your head, you scratch yourself. It's a little bit intense, but we're gonna relax, and we're hoping that these bolts come out. Please come out, please.
Cross your fingers, cross your eyes. I don't know, whatever you do for good luck.
Okay, I'm about ready to go in. Oh, oh. Okay, I think crossing your eyes actually works. It seems like it's turning and it's not snapping off. These bolts are a lot thicker, oh, and heavier duty. Everyone out there, keep your eyes crossed. Let's try to get these babies off in one piece. So these here are the 4 bolts that need to come out. Oh man, doesn't look so bad. The 2 things that we're learning the hard way, when I last took these bolts out over in the front here, anti-seize would have been a great idea. And when you get salt water on the engine, an immediate freshwater bath would have also been great.
What's next?
Next, I'm gonna remove the back boot. That's securing the heat exchanger, so the heat exchanger should slide right out. And that's also gonna help us to get off this exhaust elbow. So getting it off is actually a lot easier than getting it on. And getting it off is still pretty difficult, but I'm not looking forward to putting this thing back together. Come on, you beast.
Oh, you got it.
The back boot. The boot.
Is that what you're talking about?
That's what the frog said.
I don't get it. Do you get it?
Here is our trusty rusty heat exchanger. Originally, a lot of people thought the heat exchanger was the root of our problem. So in the Turks and Caicos, we had this pressure tested. And what that's looking for is a leak in any one of these. You see all these little tubes here? And if any of these tubes has a little hole in it, then the salt water will mix with the fresh water. So what happens is that boot is secured onto here, and the raw water, the salt water, is going through all of these tubes inside here. And this is sitting in a housing that has fresh water all around it. And so it's keeping fresh water and salt water separate. And it's got moving salt water going through it, and it's got the fresh water that's circulating inside of a closed system. On our heat exchanger, we have this little pinhole at the top here that's made to be there, and this pinhole needs to be oriented upright. So if this was sideways or down, then that'll also cause salt water to mix with fresh water, and you're gonna have a bad time. But we had it oriented correctly, and the heat exchanger actually looks pretty good. So we're gonna go set this in the garage and continue on with removing our exhaust elbow. There's 2 places where you can disconnect the hose. One that's connected directly to the old Achilles heel, and the other one is connected to the water lock muffler. It's just the plastic part, and I believe it's easier to remove that part. Come on, baby. Work with me. Work with me. Just work with me. God. Okay.
Whoa.
Okay. So what I was saying was it's easier to remove it from this part than it would have been to disconnect these hose clamps and try to pull it out of here. That was learned in the trenches.
While Jill's working on that, I just wanted to show you my little baby green onions. I chopped these off till they're about 1 inch from the roots, and then just stuck them in this water like maybe 4 or 5 days ago, and I've already got like a good 6 inches of green onion growing.
So the raw water comes up, goes through the heat exchanger into here, and that's where it gets into the exhaust elbow. So right here You got the salt water coming in, you got the air coming in, and it goes through this and comes out and goes out of the back of the boat. So why is this the Achilles heel of our engine? Well, first, let's talk about Achilles heels. You can have a real strong warrior, and all you gotta do is slice his Achilles heel, and he's pretty much useless. You can't walk, his feet are flopping around like dead fish. You got it. Up until recently, we were unaware that this is not a serviceable part. You can service it, clean it out with muriatic acid like we've done to maybe extend it for a year at the most until you can get a new one, but you know, every 8 or so years, these are meant to be replaced. You're not really able to save them. Somewhere in here, it's clogged. Probably, who knows, very, very like a pinhole. And so the water is trying to get out of the boat going through here, and it has nowhere to go. So what it does is it blows the boot up here. The weakest point is right here. And then the salt water gets in to the fresh water right here, because when you rev it high, the impeller spins faster, brings more salt water in and tries to move it through the system. It has nowhere to go, so it comes into here, overflows our tank, and just starts spouting out all over the engine. Michael's done quite a bit of research. Right now she's going to explain to you the difference between the high-rise elbow and the standard elbow and how you know which one you need. Also, she's going to talk about our plans to replace this.
As near as we can figure, that 90-degree elbow is pretty standard. That's probably what came on our engine from the factory, because that's what's in all of our schematic diagrams that we have in our book. The only reason that we would need a high-rise elbow is if there's not enough room from where the exhaust comes out of the engine and to where it enters into that waterlock muffler. I was reading around on some forums trying to figure out if we could get away with the cheaper standard 90-degree elbow, and the rule of thumb that I found is you need about 9 vertical inches between where that exhaust comes out and goes into the waterlock muffler. Your standard exhaust elbow is just going to consist of this piece, the outlet for the boot to connect to, and this, but this is going to be connected right here, so it has none of this high-rise portion going on. And the reason why this is important is because it prevents water from backing up through the exhaust and getting into your cylinders through that air exhaust area. So if you don't have the help of gravity and like a long hose coming off of it to prevent the water from backing in, you need the little help that this high rise is going to give you. As far as we know, we're not dealing with any seawater coming into the cylinders. We're just dealing with it backing up into the cooling system. And that salt water getting into the cylinders is a way bigger problem than what we're dealing with. Also, if any of you smarty pants know more or better than I do about why you might want a high rise versus that standard exhaust elbow, please let us know in those comments. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Wasn't that fun?
Now you know the Achilles heel of the Volvo Penta and maybe other engines is the old exhaust elbow. Even if you don't have the high-rise elbow, we have heard that even the standard 90 degrees can be an issue.
They just get clogged up.
Yep, this
Gotta
thing's
switch
got
it
a lot
out.
of gunk in it.
Like an oil filter.
Like an expensive oil filter. This one's gonna run us about $1,000. We're gonna have to come back to the water pump. We're gonna have to get that off at some point, so stay tuned for that.
We're
Subscribe.
gonna be cleaning the engine and we're gonna be drilling out bolts next time you see us. This is way bigger of a job than I thought it was gonna be.
These are the tales of Moab. Over here. Over here. Come on. Come on, Willie. attention. Focus.
Boab! Lola dipped. How come you're so quiet?